All right. Without further ado, I'm going to start calling this guy the all-around combine when it goes down the diamonds. Here he is, the ski champion. I mean, this guy's Vaughn's Clomber. One of the great, and he is our guy, part of Birds 365. Big C, Zander Krause. I know, brother.
What's up, Big Sills? Good to be back with you, my man. How you doing?
Oh, good, man. I appreciate you, man. I mean, all right, let me start this out here for you here.
How you been, bro? I haven't talked to you in 3 days on the air, 4 days on the air, 5 days on the air. Feels weird.
Feels weird?
It does. I missed Big Sills. I miss kicking it around with the greatness of Big Sills.
Hey, man. I mean, look, let me do this here for you.
All right, go ahead.
Zach Baun. Percentages of them bringing him back are what to you?
50-50?
That's what I have.
50-50? That's what I got, 50-50 there. He's the one I want, though. You know, and it was interesting because did you hear Howie speak yesterday? He kind of spoke during your show, so I wasn't sure if you went back and watched it.
Yep, I did.
A lot of people took from it like he wasn't gonna change or wasn't gonna bring back anybody with the way he spoke, and I kind of heard that too, where it was like he was almost bracing people. Hey, be patient. Don't just wait for free agency in the draft. There's a lot more to it than that. But John thinks that he was saying the unconventional wisdom is going to be him signing Baun instead of signing the defensive lineman, which is what Howie would normally do. So I don't know. I feel pretty good about Baun, but he's a guy I think you got to get back. If you want to try and have if you want your defense to improve or be as good as last year, I think you need Zach Baun.
How about this? You think he's the product of the players around him and the system he's in? Or do you think if you put him in Carolina, he's an all-pro defensive linebacker? See, to me, if I took Roquan Smith from Chicago and put him in Baltimore, I know he's a $20 million inside linebacker, and I know who that guy is. Based off of 1 year, I look at Zach Baun and I say this, just because I saw the way Oren Burks, and by the way, I don't want to dismiss his season because it was probably the best linebacking year they've had in there, maybe since Trotter Sr., and maybe even since Seth Joyner, when you talk about some of the great players that have played that position. But to me, I think he's a product of the guys in front of him, around him, the coordinator, the structure of the system, the organization. If I put him anywhere else, would he be that guy? I find that hard to believe. So that is going to put me in a different room when it comes to negotiating. And really, I heard Howie talking. Dude, Howie's not going to jump into a car dealership and go like this if I'm trying to buy a car, Zander. Hey, I want that car, man. That car's the best-looking car in the lot. Fuck, I'll pay anything. He's negotiating right now publicly going,
I agree.
Hey, you know what? We're going to do everything within the structure of our integrity of how we look at our cap. The thing that made New England great, Zander, over that 20-year span, they made the tough cuts. They moved on from the tough players, and they never overpaid, and they never had one salary ever have an anchor around that roster. They never had one. They moved off of Darrelle Revis. They moved off of Randy Moss. They moved off of Richard Seymour. They moved off of guys like Mike Vrabel. It didn't matter because they wanted to keep that cap integrity. That's how I look at him right now. And do I think they want each other? I do. But I think that's going to be a really tough sign. If he gets out in the open market, Zander, and there's not a deal on the table before March 12th, I don't think it's possible to sign him because of all the stupid teams that are out there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Howie, in a way, when he was speaking yesterday, was speaking to the agents. Wasn't he? You know? Yeah, I'm talking to the media, but I'm speaking to the agents who are listening, who want their guys to get negotiated with. No, I agree. And it's going to be interesting. You know, you bring up the Patriots example, and while I understand the example, I will pose to you, are the Philadelphia Eagles much different? And in a way, it's harder because they had their catalyst in Tom Brady. The Chiefs have their catalyst in Patrick Mahomes. I love Jalen Hurts, and I've given him the kudos this year. But in a way, we're a different team right now for someone that wants to repeat. We were based on team success. Our team was built through the defense, through the running game, through what Jalen provided. It all came together, and that's what made you such a dominant football team. The Patriots, let's be real, they had great defenses. They won because they had Tom Brady. Now, I know they had great defenses and stuff, and they had good defensive lines, and I get it. But the Chiefs, same thing with Mahomes. Isn't this harder for the Eagles to sustain when you're that more team-based? So they're going to have to get creative. And while I understand letting players walk, I don't think you're in a position where you can let a guy like Zach Baun go. I mean, back to what you said about Zach Baun. No, I don't think he'd be that player. I don't think he is Roquan or Fred Warner, like you said, where he can sign anywhere and he's an all-pro linebacker. But you've seen what he can do in this system, right? And he is an all-pro in Philly.
Yep.
And I think you got to value that. Now, I don't think they're going to break the bank, to your point. I don't think they're going to go $18 million, but I think they're going to offer him $13 million and say, look, you want to play here in Philly? I know you're probably going to get a better offer. We're going to give you $13 million. We're going to front load your contract. You're going to get a boatload of cash. And if you want to come and compete here, we're ready. But you're right. They're not going to break the integrity of what they do to a crazy extent.
You said something, though, that all that shit you said at the front end, I didn't care about. When you went like this, though, they're going to front end it. I went, what?
Right.
Okay. I mean, what? Okay. Well, if you're going to give me more guarantees up front and you want to put that number at 13.5 instead of me going on the open market and getting 18,
right? Okay.
I want that money up front because the only guaranteed money, Zander, is the guaranteed money.
Right.
When you see 3 years, $63 million, you know how many? Look at Javon Hargrave. Here's a great example. He never lived up to that 3-year contract that the 49ers gave him. Why? They whacked him. So the back end of that contract, he doesn't get that salary.
Right.
The only thing he's guaranteed are the guarantees. So if the Eagles come to him and go, here's a 3-year guaranteed contract of $13 million a year. However, we will give you 30 guaranteed. Fuck, I'm in.
Right.
I'm in because I got to look at it like this. Am I going to go to a place where I have Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Vic Fangio, and the most important thing, they love me here. I don't want to go with grass is greener on the other side to T-Bone, who, by the way, thank you again. I don't want to go to the Carolina Panthers where in 12 months my values get again, unless I'm getting $40 million guaranteed. That's how players think.
That might be their golden negotiation tactic with him, Sills, what you just said, guaranteed money. Because think about it. If another team is going to pay Zach Baun, remember, they have all the uncertainty of he was a 1-year player. He's never done this before. So they're probably going to say, I'll give you 4 years and $15 million a year, but our guarantees are going to be $8 million a year or whatever it is in that range. If the Eagles can come in, give them a less per year, but a higher guarantee, that might be the insurance you need on that deal to get Zach Baun in Philly while not giving him too much money. Now, I know that makes it harder to affect the cap, but look, Jeffrey Lurie pays up front, man. He's been known for doing that. So that's what makes Howie's job so much, not that it's not complicated, but it makes it easier when you have an owner that's willing to pay like he is. And I think that's going to be that basically what you just said. Now that I'm thinking about it, that could be the way to get Baun.
Yes.
You know, even if it's, let's just say it's $12 million. I'll give you $12 million a year, but I'll give you $31 million guaranteed, right? I'm in. You're right. I think that might be the way to get that Zach Baun.
Because listen, I pointed it out to people. Here's a guy that's maybe made $3, $4, $5 million in his career over the years in New Orleans. We'll cut that down to 2.5 because of taxes. Then you're talking about living. You're talking about maybe $700,000 that he has in the bank account at most.
Right.
Okay. This is a point where you have to, his wife and his family and his agent won't like that deal because it's lesser overall value. However, the signing bonus matters to the agent because that money also goes, if you get $40 million guaranteed from the Eagles, the agent gets $4 million of that.
Right. That's true.
Tonight.
That's involved in it too.
That's right. All right. Before we go on to Becton, have your falls on the ski slopes charge your thinking process when it comes to the Garrett deal.
You know what? They have.
Wow. Let me hear.
Nolan Smith has more championship pedigree in 2 NFL seasons and 3 years in college than Myles Garrett has in how many years of professional sports. I'm not sitting here and telling you Nolan Smith is a better player. But what I am not doing is taking a championship player with a championship mindset and putting it in a deal for a guy who's all talent with no hardware. I understand it's the team. I understand Myles Garrett is as good as he is. I'm not sending Nolan. If you want to take 32 and some back end guy, I'm with you. You know what? If you want to take our next 2 first-round picks, I'll consider it. But I am not taking championship DNA guys from that defense and plucking them to replace him with a 30-year-old dude who's never won jack shit. No, I'm out. I'm out, Sileo.
So let me go here then. So would you ever straight up trade Micah Parsons for Nolan Smith? He doesn't have a championship pedigree.
Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett combined don't have the championship DNA.
So you would keep Nolan Smith over a straight up trade with Micah Parsons?
Straight up trade? No, anybody's taking that deal, but that's not what we're talking about here.
We're talking about putting better players on your team. We're not talking about a guy with a ring. We're talking about a better player. I'm talking about improving my football team.
I mean, if you're going straight up, yeah, I'd have to take it. Micah Parsons is one of the best players in the world.
And guess who's better than him? The guy in Cleveland. Okay. I mean, hey, wait a minute. Listen, the only reason I'm even fucking contemplating this, because here, to your point, like you said last week, hey, Sills, we won without him. Hey, make me want to rip my game plan up a little bit on page 2 for me to want to do this. Well, there's only one guy. He was graded the top NFL player non-quarterback. Do you understand? We're not talking about, well, he's the 3rd best end. No, he's the best player in the league non-quarterback. And what I'm telling you with this guy, so that makes me do this. That guy's going to defer that $79 million. Maybe I do keep Sweat or Milton, one of those guys. And I got Milton Williams, or I got Josh Sweat, and I got Myles Garrett, and I got fucking Jordan Davis, and I've got I got Carter, and I got Baun, and I got N'Kobe. Holy shit, dude. I get the best front 7 I've seen since the Ravens.
Sounds real pretty. It sounds perfect. It sounds like we live in a beautiful sunshine and rainbows world where you got the greatest. What happens if Myles Garrett at 30 years old gets an injury?
What happens if Nolan Smith continues to get banged up like he does in his career?
Well, that's a viable problem. You know, the Nolan Smith injuries are the biggest thing you could say to me that would make me want to move off him. You know, he's just not that big. All right, big guys beat up little guys, and he's already
got surgery now too, right? Exactly.
Right. So another injury. I don't. You know, that's the biggest question mark on him. But again, it sounds a little perfect. Here's the reality, though.
You're right.
It sounds perfect. Here's the reality, though. We did just have the best defense in the NFL. Yep. We did just win the Super Bowl. Like, we didn't get there and lose. We won. We got to the mountaintop.
Convincingly.
Exactly. Without the need to do any of this. So while what Sileo is saying sounds perfect, and Myles is this great player, I do think it's leaving out some of the variables that don't meet the eye right now, where you don't know how it's going to unfold. We don't know how it's all going to play out. It sounds perfect. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. And you have a great team right now with a young core. They're building, they're growing, they're getting better. A lot of these guys are going to need to get paid in the future. You're managing the cap.
He's on a rookie deal.
I think there's a better chance they trade an offensive player than a defensive player. If it came to that.
Well, it'd have to be AJ.
I'm not trading AJ Brown.
Who do you think you're going to trade? Jahan Dotson?
How about this deal?
Or Devontae.
No, I don't want to get rid of Devontae.
Wait, you want to trade him a Hugo? Come on, man.
What are 2 1s a Hugo?
No, that ain't cutting it for that guy.
Yeah, how about Dallas Goedert?
Oh, you want to? Hey, wait. So you want to trade a guy who's always hurt and Zander, listen to you. You are so fucking management sometimes. You want the best deal for you, and you're not looking at how the other team is looking at. By the way, I saw a guy in here say, Nolan Smith is hurt once. You drafted him with an injured shoulder, guy. He was injured.
Yes, that's true.
When you drafted him out of Georgia. So it wasn't just one time. So that's not true here, man. Hey, dude, here's where I'm at with Garrett. Listen, if I don't think that deal is conducive for me, and I don't see massive positives, I'm not doing it. However, if you lose Baun and you lose Milton or the other guy, Sweat, one of those two, you're not the same defense coming back. Wouldn't you want to have a super elite player on your defense to kind of compensate for the loss of 2 guys?
I'm going to make a prediction right now. I'm going to make a prediction that the entire NFL media is off base on what the Browns are going to get in a trade for Myles Garrett.
Oh, you think it's too rich?
I think it's too rich. I think when push comes to shove, these deals, you know how they work.
Yeah.
The Browns fit. By the way, Myles does have a no trade clause. So he's going to be able to dictate to some extent, who do I want to go to? That's going to narrow the Browns pool. Then you're going to look at who's willing to pay him the money and the contract and who has the picks. You're going to talk about 2 or 3 teams, 4 teams, maybe 5 teams that can compete on this thing. Not 32 with, hey,
right.
What's the best deal I can? I mean, if you're playing Madden, yeah, you're going to have to
going to Tennessee. He's not going to Tennessee.
Exactly. You're talking about a couple of teams here. So who's going to sweeten the deal the most in order for the Browns to push it? I think, in fact, that's where I think 2 1s from the Eagles, if they were willing to do that, which I'm not even sure they are. I know they're late in the rounds, but I'm not sold at how he's willing to depart with his next 2 first-round picks. I'm just not sold on that. Commanders are another good one, Abe. They're a team. I think the Lions could be a team. There's like a couple of teams. So they're going to be leveraging versus each other. By the way, Sileo tells you all the time, word gets around. Howie's going to be working the phones. Brad Holmes is going to be working the phones. The Peters guy in Washington is going to be working the phones. I think this thing is going to come down a little bit. It's not going to be this crazy comp. I mean, if you think about it, 2 1s and Nolan Smith, dude, that's a king's ransom.
For a 28, 29-year-old player.
For a 29-year-old guy. And I'm not saying Nolan Smith is that impressive, but Nolan Smith is a young edge rusher. Those are valuable guys in the league.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's going to come down a little bit. So,
can somebody remember what Brian Burns got? I know he got the $25 million.
Didn't he get like a 2 and a 5, dude?
Wasn't it like 2-5, but they gave him the $25 million. And a year previous, if you remember right, the Rams offered 2 1s for him.
They got a second, a 5th, and it was a pick swap in the 5th. So they really traded the second rounder for Brian Burns.
And he's 25.
And he's 25, and he's damn good. Now, he's not Myles Garrett. I mean, come on.
No, but
he's a good player.
No, but there's compensation that you're talking about that when you get out there in the open market. But again, factor in stupidity. Okay? With team, not saying the Eagles are, because they're not. They're not going to go over and above this thing to have put a stupid deal together. They're just not. I got that. I mean,
yeah,
bro.
So do you agree with me that this thing might be too rich?
Maybe.
I know it's fun to talk about.
Because the age.
Right, the age.
The age.
You know, here's one thing I don't agree, though. You know, there is some people who are like, you know, he's 29. He only got 2 good seasons left. I'm like, I don't see 2 good seasons left of him. I see at least 4 good seasons. Now, maybe he ages when he gets over that 30 mark.
I think 3 great, 4 really good. Okay.
Well, remember, let's say we traded from this offseason. This would technically be his 29-year-old season. I think he turned 30 in like December. So he would just turn 30 at the end of the season. Then your next year, you're talking about 30-year-old into 31. That's 2 seasons down. 31 into 32 would be your third season with Garrett, and that's when you'd probably have an out on the contract anywhere where you can decide what you want to do with him. So I don't really think the age is scary other than the injury thing and, paying that age.
Ask yourself this. If you did what we just said on the trade and the value of the trade was you gave those first rounders and Nolan Smith and you got Myles and you won a Super Bowl inside the next 3 years, would it have been worth it?
What was that again?
If the compensation you make now in this offseason to get Myles Garrett, moving Smith, and you gave a first rounder up, you gave whatever, a second and third for him and Nolan Smith, and you won a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, would that deal have been worth it?
I mean, you'd like to say yes, right? But it's so hard because,
Or does Nolan Smith keep your window open longer because he's younger?
Right. That's a question too. And there's no way to know the answer to the other side if you don't make the move. So it's an impossible scenario to lay out because I believe the team could. I truly believe this. And I don't this is not Eagle fan to me. This is objective viewing of the NFL and where the dominant or where the teams who have a chance to control the next 3 seasons are. I think the Eagles have a great chance as it stands today to win another Super Bowl in the next 3 years. I truly believe that. Myles Garrett might improve those odds, but it's hard for me to say that we wouldn't get one if we didn't go for him. Maybe it would improve it. I'm sure it would, honestly, if it worked out. A lot of
Especially if you lose one of the 3 big guys or 2 of the 3 big guys on defense, you're not going to be the same unit coming back. And by the way, I'm not suggesting because of the great coaching that Vic's not going to have you as one of the top units in the NFL. I just think it's going to be tougher. Common sense would say you lose 3 starters, especially one who's an all-pro. You're going to be fucking a little bit suspect at certain situations, especially if you're light at defensive end. You were a 3-man rotation anyway going into the Super Bowl here.
Is there anybody on this team right now that you think that the Eagles, outside of Myles Garrett, would be considering trading this offseason?
On defense?
Anywhere.
I think they would trade Goedert. I think you got to get out from under him because he's just not reliable enough because he's injured. But by the way, folks,
they don't have a good contingency at this point, though.
He's a great player, but
they don't have a good contingency at this point, though.
No, they got to make that room better and more versatile. You know what they don't have in that room? You need a blocker, you need a catcher, you need a blocker, and you need a catcher. That's what you need to do in that tight end room, and it's very limited. Here, well, I mean, who would be tradable on the team? Who would I trade? That's under contract. You're talking. I'm assuming. They got a lot of young good guys. What I think about trading, Brown doesn't have enough game tape for me to go after him because he's been injured so much. Sidney Brown's been just injured. It's just potential you're talking. Now, that could be what basically how he did with Gardner Johnson. Somebody's parachuting in and go, oh, I'll trade you a 3 for him, and you go for him. I don't know. I mean, because that's what he did with Gardner Johnson.
Yeah.
It's somebody
this is why I don't think that they're going to trade the tight end because it is a tight end rich draft, but are you going to draft a tight end and rely on him to be your number 1? Probably not. No. We all know what Calcaterra can do. He's got his positives, but he's got too many deficiencies to be a number 1 tight end. And you go to the free agency, you have Tyler Conklin, Jawan Johnson, Gerald Everett, Mo Alley Cox, Harrison Bryant, Austin Hooper, Zach Ertz, Mike Gesicki. I don't dislike, but he's 30 years old. I mean, you're not looking at an abundance of options there to replace him at this time.
No, it's very limited at best. I think, boy, if teams knocked on the door for Howie, who would I deal? I'll tell you what, those 2 backup DTs, man. Those 2 backup DTs
have Jomo and Thomas Booker.
Yeah, those 2 guys got value to me,
but
man.
If Milton Williams walks, you're going to need
you're elevating. You're elevating them.
Right.
I like those 2 guys.
So they're not trade pieces if Milton Williams walks.
No. That's why I'm
thinking. Yale brings up Kyle Pitts in the tight ends. I'm not huge on Kyle Pitts, but
I don't think he's physical enough. He's a pass catcher. Like, you got to play him in
Yeah,
space
he's
and
a
in the
super
slot.
wide receiver, and he's not even that good at wide receiver. That's the
You got to
problem.
put him in a slot. He's not real
He's a
physical
tweener.
like that.
He's a tweener, and he's not that good
Yeah,
at being the tweener. So
he was that at
doesn't really
Florida.
work.
He you know, he played like that at Florida.
He was a perfect college player, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That doesn't always work in the pros, though.
I got to tell you, Zander, before I get to Becton Williams and Sweat here, I'm moving off of Slay.
Yeah, I think it's time. It feels time. Like, I love his tenure here in Philly.
Don't you want to get rid of him before he has nothing left?
Yeah, it feels time. It feels time. You drafted 2 defensive backs last year that exceeded your expectations in a huge way. You have a 4th rounder you've now had on the bench for 2 years. It's time to see what he's made of, if anything at all.
And no money's guaranteed him.
Right. I mean, you have Isaiah Rodgers. So he's 34. He's the oldest cornerback in the league.
12
got
million.
his ring. It feels right. It feels right. That's what I'll say. It feels like the time to move on from Slay.
12 million too.
Yeah, that's too rich.
For a 33-year-old, 34-year-old guy, man. I mean, that's just a little bit.
Here's what I don't like, though, and this seems to be a common line.
He's going to be a tough replace.
Marina says, let Slay go and re-sign Rodgers. I'd like to re-sign Rodgers. I wouldn't feel great going into the year if you told me that Isaiah Rodgers was our outside cornerback starting with Quinion. I wouldn't feel that great about that.
Would you move Cooper out there to the number?
I would. A lot of people say they won't.
Say to that.
John thinks eventually he's going to be out there. He doesn't think it's going to be this year.
I would move him out there.
I would move him out there. Remember, his agent's in his ear too. Yeah. Hey, man, you're great in the slot.
You're going to make more money out.
You want to make big money? Let's get outside. You're capable. Right. Let's get outside. So eventually that conversation's coming.
You're not going to make the money in the slot. You're going to make the money on the number. That's where the corner number, you're not going to make, you know why Becton's number is so low to 12 million? Because he's a right guard. If he's a left guard, it's 20 million.
That's what Dickerson's making.
That's right. That's how the number goes here.
I think Becton might be back.
He is. Here, let me go here then. See, Becton goes down where your thinking was last week and where he is now. Here's when he was the 14th pick, he was a colossal disaster in New York. Are you going to go to another place to have Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens on each side of you? The best O-line coach. You've got $20+ million that you earned in New York off that rookie contract. He's in a way different position than Zach. If I take the 11, 12 million to play right guard and have that spread out over 4 years, man, you could make that thing feel like $7.5 million. And then, God knows, whatever happens, Lane, move him out the right. I wouldn't move if I were him because he's playing Pro Bowl right guard right now. You found a position for him like you did for Lane at left guard. Lane was supposed to be earmarked down the road as a center replacement for Jason Kelsey. He's turned out to be one of the top 3 left guards in all of football. If I'm Becton, I think of all the guys that are free agents, Becton is a 90%, at least in my eyes. Where are you going to go? Are you really going to go to Tennessee and then go there and then shit the bed and then look like a fat guy again like you did in New York with the Jets? Why would I do that? This guy's resurrected my career. I've got money in the bank. I'm staying in Philly. I'll take 3 less there to know that I could play the next 5 to 6. Remember how young he is. He's 25. This guy could play 10 more years. 10 more years in Philly. He's 25, Zander.
Yeah, he's got some knee issues. 10 years is hefty.
He did play all 17.
Yeah, it's true. 10 years is hefty. I think the deal is going to be 4 years for Becton. And I see somebody puts in here, Becton 5 years, $65 million. I don't dislike your number. I think your number's a little rich. I think it's probably close to the money, though. You know, if you're, what do you have, 12.5 a year with that? Yeah. 13 a year. So it's not awful.
And you could spread out the bonus over that.
But period. 5 years, they're not going to give him 5 years with that knee. They're going to give him 4 years, probably with an out after the 3rd year. Yeah. Or maybe even less, maybe even an out after the 2nd year. Yeah. But I would give him a lot of guaranteed money too, because, you know, you're not going to give him $20 million. It's going to be 10, 12, somewhere in that range. So I like Becton to come back though. And I think that gives you stability at the O-line, you know, and I think you want that. And I don't know. Again, I'm not a people reader, and I don't like to count pockets, but he does strike me as a guy that is going to be willing to stay in Philly because he loves it here. He probably feels as though it's the best interest of him personally and his career, and $12 million is enough to probably get him under contract. So I think Becton will be back.
How much does the Nakobe Dean? By the way, Brian Baldinger will join us at 4:30 Eastern from the NFL Network. We're going to throw all this at him as well. How much does the Nakobe Dean injury affect your game plan this offseason here and what you're going to do with the linebacker position? Because, again, we just got through talking about Baun. Are you going to go in the draft? Are you going to go free agency? I think for me, free agency is kind of Nick Bolton, potentially. Or
I like Nick Bolton.
He's got 2 rings, too.
Yeah.
He's 25.
That's championship pedigree I was talking about earlier. I like that. I like Nick Bolton. If Baun, for whatever reason, gets out the door, I like the idea of Nick Bolton.
Get this. Guess who he played behind? Guess who he played in front of? I mean, he had Chris Jones with him. So you have Jalen Carter in front of him. You kind of have that same dynamic. Okay, and that might only cost you $11 million for Nick Bolton. Nick is not as highly sought after as Zach is. You're talking about a guy who was down in the 15 area, ranked 15 free agent. You might be able to get him for 10, Zander. I mean, that to me, and he was coached by Steve Spagnuolo.
Nick Bolton, that's steep though. 10 mil. I'm going 13 for Baun then.
You're going to pay. Well, I think Baun will get 15 to 17 in the open market.
Do you? Ooh,
yeah,
man. That's heavy, man.
There'll be a stupid
heavy.
team.
That's heavy. Look, I like Zach Baun. I love Zach Baun. I mean, he was a big part of the reason that we just had a parade down Broad Street. But 15 to 17 million is rich for a guy that's played great 1 year in the NFL.
I know. I'm totally with you on that. So that Nakobe Dean injury, though, how's that linebacker position now look for you? Are you more concerned about it and how you fill it? Are you filling it with free agency or are you filling it in the draft?
Yeah, I think you're probably filling it. I think Oren Burks will be back.
I'll tell you this. I like that kid from Bama.
Campbell?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not drafting him.
At 32, I'll tell you what you can get with him.
I see a lot of people talking about Campbell.
Well, hang on. Let me show you here at 32. Say you're at 32 and he's not drafted. Let me show you what I do.
I would draft him in a heartbeat.
I go to Tennessee or I go to whoever has the first pick in the second round, and I go like this. Hey, I'd like to swap picks with me. Get me another second rounder, and I take him at the top of the second round at 33, yeah. And that means, get this, that means I don't have to pay him guaranteed money. And I got him cheaper because he's a 2. And I have him as a starter in the middle of my lineup. Dude, I'm telling you, that kid is a good ball player. He is a good, and you get him on a rookie deal, and then you have your linebacker position set up for the next 7 years.
Listen, it sounds great. It's very unlikely.
Don't you think that?
I'm just telling people now that's very unlikely.
Don't you think, though, that Nick Fangio has changed Howie's mentality at the linebacker position and the importance of it? He even said today, or yesterday it was, Howie went like this: don't think anything is the same because things change all the time in how you evaluate and how you appropriate. He's talking money. Same with the running back position. Dude, he changed his mentality by giving what's-his-name $12 million.
Right.
So don't you think the linebacker play this year, and plus what you saw with TJ and Kaiser 2 years ago and the shit you saw a year ago, don't you think that changed his mentality moving forward and how he now has to also adjust how he's thinking is when it comes to that position? I think it's changed.
Yeah, I think it's more player-based, though. I think Zach Baun has been so special that it's almost like, dude, if you got slapped in the face with it, you can't miss it. You know what I mean? Like, he's been that good. That's where I think a guy like TJ Edwards, who many of us thought we were going to pay because he was pretty damn good with the Eagles. He wasn't Zach Baun, but he was pretty good when he played here. We thought he was going to pay him. Howie let him walk for $7 million. So I really think it's player dependent here. And I think Zach Baun has probably shifted that. And maybe it's Vic. Maybe it's like, yo, dude,
Yes.
I mean, I got the one defense. I'm telling you right now, if you get me this, I can have it again. So maybe there is some Vic Fangio in there. And I think that's probably a good thing. I think that's probably a good thing that's in there. But look, Howie's been good at evaluating defensive talent. Vic Fangio has not been here for 4 years. Okay. We've added great defensive pieces in the last 4 drafts. All right. Between Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. You could even argue Jordan Davis Quinyon Mitchell, Jalix Hunt, Cooper DeJean, all these guys. So, it's part of it. I think Vic is part of it. But I think overall, the player, how good he was. I mean, again, you can't really miss this one. It's hard to watch the Eagles team and not see Zach Baun everywhere.
Now, these last 2 guys. Milton Williams. I think there's 2 stories to this with Williams. On February 26th, more than likely he's gone. However, you lose Zach Baun. And now I know that Dean's out. I heard that Dean's kneecap was in his thigh. It was such a catastrophic injury. And then he's dealing with a patella injury. So that thing is going to be a tough putt for them to be able to have him back for the start of the season next year. Okay, all that being said, you lose Baun. Dude, I can't lose a guy that I've invested player development. I drafted him in the 3rd, developed him into this guy. Now, he's an 18.5 guy. Am I going to pay him $18.5 million, or am I going to somehow come up with the money bag situation again, get him down to 15? I mean, they paid Fletcher. Now, my problem with that is that ain't Fletcher Cox. I paid Fletcher $16 million. That ain't Fletcher. Now, the market has changed. I think everything really predicates on what they see and what happens with Baun and who goes or who doesn't go in free agency, because I would take that kid Williams at 32 from Ohio State at 32 if I'm going to go there. And I would take an interior. Remember, the trenches. That's where he goes. Okay? I think that's got a lot to do, Milton Williams, on what they see at the combines this week. Because if they see a D tackle in there or a guy that can play that position, I think Milton Williams is out the door.
And they got there's quite a bit of D tackles in this draft. It's
the interior.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
So it's a heavy draft in that front. So it should be interesting. The Nakobe Dean injury is not ideal for him. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. This a bad time in his contract, a bad time in his development as a player, a bad time in the year. I mean, all around a bad situation for Nakobe Dean. He's going into the 4th and final year of his deal. So
I know he's eligible for an extension.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to extend him.
Nope.
Is he going to be the starter at the start of the year? Could he get Wally pipped? I don't know. I mean, I think everything is in the cards for Nakobe Dean right now. And then when he does come back, how confident are you in him to be the same player he was? I think Nakobe Dean could be out the door, or he could not play great next year or play limited reps, and then you get him on a deal. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Dean has never finished the season not on IR.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Mean, can you build your future linebacking room based on that? You can't.
No, you can't. You can't. But No Limit says we're drafting his replacement. Like, we're not like this big linebacker drafting team. Like, we're not gonna spend. We just spent a 3rd on Nakobe, which was a big one for us. We don't spend first on linebackers, which is why I said we're probably not going to draft Campbell.
You haven't drafted a linebacker in the first round since 1975 or 6.
Yeah, they're not doing that. So your options that's where I think Oren Burks is going to be back, and I think Zach Baun. I think if I had to guess right now, your starting linebackers on September or whatever it is, 8th next year or 6th or whatever it is, are going to be Zach Baun and Oren Burks. Or Zach Baun and Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
Or a draft pick out in the third or second round, somewhere in there that
I
they
doubt that.
Hey, Edgerrin Cooper was not a first rounder, and he
He
started.
was a second rounder.
You don't think they would spend a 2 knowing the significance
Not right now,
of
no.
that linebacker?
Wait a second. Let me ask you something. You think that this offseason they're going to pay Zach Baun $13 to $15 million and then turn around and spend a 2 on a linebacker? There's no way. There's no way.
No.
There's just no way. If we sign Baun, the better bet is that the Eagles are going to put the cheapest guys around.
They'll put Burks in there.
Yeah, cheap, and even Burks might be too rich. He might get $5 million, which is going to be too rich.
He might get $5 million.
I think he will. He played good in the Super Bowl.
He's been in 2 straight Super Bowls.
Yeah, and he played good this year.
Yep.
You think the linebacker situation's tough, man? That Nakobe Dean injury is not ideal.
You think Williams is gone?
Milton?
Yeah,
I do, and I don't dislike it. And I'll tell you why. Love the player. I think he's been great in Philly. I don't think he's a $22 million a year defensive tackle.
I do not either.
And I think that's what he's going to get paid. And I think he was benefited. And I'm not knocking him. I think he's awesome. I love the story. In fact, I love the clip of his dad. They seem like a great family, great guy. He's got everything you would want. But I'm talking business right now. You're talking $20+ million for this guy. Let's be real. He played next to Jalen Carter. He played in front of Zach Baun. And he played with the best secondary in football this year in coverage.
Don't forget the coordinator.
Don't forget the coordinator. And an honorable mention is the edge rushers, too. I know they were no Myles Garrett, but they had a lot of pressures this year. I mean, the reason that the Eagles defense was so good was because they got pressure with 4. Milton was a part of that. But he had a lot of great things around him. So you're telling me the question you asked me about Zach Baun earlier in this segment, I'll ask you the same one about Milton Williams.
No.
Is he a $20 million a year defensive tackle on any team in the league?
No way. And I'll add this to you. Do you think he had the year that Javon Hargrave had 2 years ago where he got 20 in San Fran?
But he was a little more versatile.
Because he played right. He played
the run better.
85 and the 7
Yep.
techniques.
Yep.
Where Javon couldn't. But Javon did have 11.5 sacks that year.
Yeah, 11 sacks is a lot for an interior guy too. That's crazy for an interior guy.
He had more sacks than Aaron Donald.
I mean, if you remember, even in that season when you were covering this team, you used to say Javon Hargrave is putting up stats, guys, but I don't love what he can do, what he does in the run game. You didn't like him as a player because of that.
I know.
So I don't know.
You're right.
I think he's great. I love the story. I just don't see him at $22 million a year. I really don't. So
you're
right.
Think
it's good business to let him walk. Probably.
Yeah, Milton's a better all-around player.
He is, but I don't know if he's $22 million.
No, but we always have to remember this, Zander, you and me. We have to remember that the cap, it's going to change your perception on the paycheck. You know, you're still in the $245 million salary cap. It's going to go to almost a $290 now.
I know, it's crazy. The cap is going to keep blowing up.
And so that changes the value of the player, salary-wise. Okay, last one.
You want to go super? Yeah, because I want to make sure I'm out of here before Baldy gets on.
Sweat's gone.
I think he's gone. Yeah. I mean, look. I think the best thing that we had was.
Did you hear the number? $23 million.
Bro, if he gets $23 million, I'm saying goodbye to him at 18.
$65 million with, get this, 40 guaranteed. For a guy that's got a knee that potentially could be strung together with a shoelace. I'm not paying that. I don't care he's 28.
I'm not paying that at all.
No fucking way, dude.
I'm not paying that. No, I'm fine with him to go. But here's the thing. All right, fine. Sweat can walk. I'm with you. I don't like him at that number. I don't like him with the knee. I don't like him at the age. I think we can get better. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a tremendous player. I don't think he's a
I thought he seesawed. I thought he seesawed. I thought he went like this.
And and he's done that every year of his career, Sills. Every year of his career. That's not a guy that you look at and go, okay, I'll give him the house. You know? No. So I think you let him walk. But you got to have a replacement plan. I mean, you got to have something, and it can't really be Bryce Huff. And I feel pretty good about Jalix Hunt. I don't think a Super Bowl team would go into the season with Jalen Hunt and Nolan Smith as your starters. I just
No.
don't.
No.
Nolan Smith coming off a tricep surgery, and Jalen Hunt is a second-year player.
Bryce Huff is your rotation guy. That's not going to cut it.
It's not going to cut it. I'm with you. So if you're going to let Sweat walk, they got to go get a name, and it's either going to be the first pick or it's going to be a guy that they sign or trade for. So we'll see what they end up doing there, but I do think Sweat's gone.
Let's get to the supers here, Zander.
Let's do it. James Williams, what's up, James? Appreciate you, brother. Are we able to trade Sweat and Williams via sign and trade, or just trading them in a package deal for another player or picks? Not that simple, man, because they're going to be free agents. So don't the players have to agree to that too?
Well, they can do it prior. Everything's got to be done before March 12th.
Right.
That's when the new season starts. Right now they're Philadelphia Eagles. But here, the closer you get to that March 12th date, it's in the best interest for Williams and for Sweat to go on the open market and not accept the deal, and for the agent to string you along. I mean, They're going to want to get on the market, because right now you're negotiating with one team. When you get in the open market, potentially you could be negotiating with 5 teams. It doesn't make sense. So the players are not, and the agent, they're not going to accept that deal right now. Williams and Sweat will not accept the deal. Baun may. He may accept the deal prior to March 12th. I wouldn't, because if I'm 28 years old and my agent's in my ear, and so is my wife, I want to see what my value is in the open market.
Yeah, I agree. Takes 2 to tango there. I just don't see why. James, let me just add, why would Sweat try and help the Eagles right now on his way out the door when he has a chance to make the most amount of money in his life?
And you asked him for a pay cut a year ago.
Right. No Limit just checks in. What's up, No Limit? Appreciate you, brother. I got to reach out and send your jersey. I was away for the last couple of days, so I'll get to it now, bro. Appreciate you. Any trade value for Slay? Probably not.
No, because the number's too high in the age. He's 34. He's $12 million. No,
maybe a 7. I don't even think a 7, honestly.
No way.
Steve checks in. What's up, Steve? We gain a ring and I lose a wrench. Crazy work, Jacob. Steve, we're not talking about digital wrenches, are we, Steve? I mean, I stripped a couple of wrenches a few weeks ago, Sills. This is what we deal with. The guy spent $10 to rip me for ripping him of his wrench. Jesus, garbage, Steve.
Hey, you're never pleased around here, man.
I love you, though, Steve. I appreciate you, man. I'm doing a revamp of the wrench system, and here's another wrench here. Abe, guaranteed money makes the player give a damn to play. It's true. I think
it is. Abe, you put that bag of money in front of me on my desk, you got my attention. You talk about money 3 years from now, you lost my attention.
That sounds familiar. Some of you need to work for me. No raise this. Oh, no, we got that. All right, we got them all. We got them all.
The fuck does that mean?
You want me to come to Philly? Bitch, I need 5 bands deposited in my account today, or I'm hanging up this phone. You want me to go to the draft for less than 5 G's? Nope. You want to go to the Super Bowl? No, not without that idea. All right, so
I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
Show me the money. Show me the money. I ain't got a problem with it. I get it.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Oh man, fuck that. We got them all?
We got them all, bro.
Bro, that's awesome, man. Hey, this is where you build your team here, isn't it?
Yes, it is, man. These are the best ones.
The content's just different.
It's different, but I love it. I really love it. I mean, it's a great time of the year. This is where your championship roster is assembled or dissembled. I mean,
that's right.
You know, and Howie's going to have another great year, and this team's going to be right there. He's going to have a middle year, and we're probably going to compete. Or he's going to have a bad year, and we're not going to have a good year. I mean, you got to build a roster here. It's a great moment in the year. It's a great time. You know, the other thing I love about it is the possibilities. You can bring up any name and think about the possibility. And I think there's a beauty in that.
Because of your GM.
Because of our GM, but also because of
that everywhere else.
I mean, you know, there's guys who look at 50 draft prospects and like, oh, we could draft this guy or this guy or this guy or this guy.
The one thing you notice about the Myles Garrett potential deal to Philly? What's the one team you're not hearing in the league? The Cowboys.
They're going to sign Milton, I bet.
Well, let me say this to you. That guy's still Neanderthal thinking about him in the draft, valuing and overvaluing his players. and not doing free agency. It's why the Cowboys don't understand free agency. The Eagles do two things here. They value free agency and the draft. Kerry doesn't value free agency.
I legitimately don't understand how some people are so bad at business. Like, why is Jerry Jones a genius businessman and so bad at doing business in football? It's not that hard. Like, most of these owners, and not all of them, but most of these owners are breaded up enough to be able to make the moves necessary to be great. And on the back end, you get an asset that is exploding in value faster than 99.9% of assets that exist in the world. I mean, Jerry has got it down with blowing up the value of his asset. He just hasn't quite figured out how to manage his cash better in order to keep a good football team. I'm not mad about it, but it is interesting to watch. Like, how are you so bad that you overpaid to the tune of $20-30 million and your cap hit on Dak is $80 million because you just don't know how to do business?
Oh.
That's negligence to me. That's being naive.
It's still stuck in the 90s. That's where he's at. All right. We're going to get Brian Baldinger on here. I'm going to take a timeout here in a second.
He hit me back. He's ready to go, so he'll be on soon.
Oh, he's coming right now?
Well, no, he hit me back that he got the link and everything, so he's all confirmed. He'll be in probably right around 4:30.
All right, fantastic. Xander, great stuff. We'll catch you tomorrow on Birds 365.
Great to be back with you, Big Sills. Appreciate everybody in JAKIB Nation. Missed all you guys. Good to be back in the saddle. Appreciate it.
Big Z, make sure you check him out tomorrow on Birds 365. Don't forget our great friends at Morgan & Morgan, folks. Very proud to have them part of the program here. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm in the country with over $20 billion in recoveries for families across the nation. That's right. That's their track record. That's what they do. With over thousands of attorneys that are at Morgan & Morgan, they make sure each and every single family that they represent, they take care of each and every single one of you. Like I said, $20 billion in recovered assets for clients. Like in PA, I told you about the family. $650K they were offered by an insurance company. No way. Morgan & Morgan went in and got $26 million for that family and their recovery. In Florida, another family, $350K they were offered by an insurance company. The team of Morgan & Morgan went in there and they got $12 million for that family. Look, if you're ever injured, do me a favor. Check out my great friends at Morgan & Morgan. The fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Big Sills or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/Big Sills or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sills sent you.
This is Eric. When